Hello, my name is Yvonne. I'm from JK Lifestyles with Yvonne. Today, joining me is Candice Ramsey. She's a self-awareness coach and holistic wellness practitioner. Also, joining me again is Koya Bakare. She's an educator. She models. She's you've been in some magazine covers also, right?
Yes, we've done Vogue, Essence. We just finished New York Fashion Week a few days ago. Yeah, it's what us wonderful melanated women do.
Yes.
I'm not jealous.
We all wonderful. We all do look at you. You're amazing.
Okay, Candice, one of the things I wanted you to come on because stress is something that bothers us all. We all have to deal with it in some way. And because you're a self-awareness coach and you deal with leaders in the business industry, but I believe that what you can share with us would be helpful to us who are not in that environment at the time.
hmm
So, could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, certainly.
Mhm.
So my focus is stress resiliency. And the reason why I focus on stress resiliency is because, so many of us hear about certain stress management tactics and things you can do. There's things all over the internet. But I feel like we really can't lean into being who we authentically are in our businesses, in our corporate spaces. We can't lead the way we want to. We don't communicate the way that we want to unless we really build up a resiliency around stress so that we can handle it in the most effective way. I think most of our problems come from the way that we handle stress. When we have communication issues, even at home with our families, carrying our work stress home, and we get snippy with our children and our spouse. And all of that is because we haven't coped with our workday, essentially. And so I like to help people understand, what are our stress patterns, what are our triggers, and really develop that deep rooted self awareness so that we can navigate stress in a better way. And that's at the foundation of what I do. And then you mentioned the holistic wellness side. So, I do all of the sound baths and I do functional breath work to help us build the CO2 tolerance so that, we can regulate our nervous system on demand, essentially.
What would you do at work if you have a boss that's giving you a hard time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it just depends on, well, one, I guess it depends on what that hard time might be, right? If they are demanding and you have deadlines and it's just the pressure is mounting from your boss, I think it's about learning how you work best, right? And being able to communicate what it is that you need from this individual. Now, if it's something where maybe they talk to you in a way, I think we've all probably been in a space where somebody has spoken to us in a way that we don't necessarily appreciate, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
again, this is about communicating, setting boundaries on how you like to be spoken to. I think that a boss is just somebody that's in a role that's responsible for your role, right? It doesn't make this person any more demand any more respect than you demand. And so if this person is speaking to you or making demands of you in a way that's unfair to you or in a way inhumane to you, then you have a right to speak up about that. And I think that a part of self-awareness and a part of regulating our nervous system is that we can approach these conversations in a way that's healthy and not harmful, because there's a way of setting boundaries and demanding respect for yourself and being able to manage your environment and your stressors in a way that's really healthy. And I think I think that's a big thing that people really need to understand is there's healthy ways of dealing with conflict. There's healthy ways of dealing with stress. There's healthy ways of dealing with interpersonal relationships. You just have to figure out what those ways are for you and how to keep your nervous system regulated in those moments so that you don't go outside of your window of tolerance.
If I may ask a question, as we're talking about awareness,
Mm-hmm.
can you help us to decode the different levels or that equation of what stress is? I found in my
Mm-hmm.
becoming, as I like to say,
Mm-hmm.
that there are certain levels of stress that I actually welcome. Well, let me
Yes.
change my words, where that aren't as antagonistic and aren't angst. However, then there's that the juxtaposition that those levels of stress that are very uncomfortable. So can you decode that for us and then outline what that resiliency may look like in that equation?
Yes, that's actually a great question because not all stress is bad stress. There is some stress that moves us. That's what puts us into action. That's the stress that actually drives us. And that's not unhealthy. When it gets unhealthy is when it becomes chronic, right? So I think when it boils down to resiliency, resiliency is about how you recover, right? We all have stress every day. I was just out running around right before I got on this call, and that was stressful. Like trying to make sure that I would get back by 4 o'clock so I can sit down and have this conversation, right? But those were the types of stressors that actually push me and drive me. I came home and I made myself some chamomile tea and I allowed myself a moment to recover before I logged into this call. So when you don't have time to recover or the know-how or the ability to recover, and then you have more stressors. So if I would have came home and something would have happened with my children or my dog or my house, and then tack that on top of the daily stressors that I had earlier today. And then later, when I get off of this call, more things just start compounding, and clients are calling, and all of these things are stacking on top of each other. And then I go to bed, I'm stressed out, my shoulders are tense, I'm not giving myself a good night's rest. I wake up tomorrow, I have all of today's stress on top of me, on top of more stress and more stress. So when it becomes chronic, that's when it becomes unhealthy. When you're giving yourself ample space to recover from the day's stressors, then that's what resiliency essentially is all about, is just giving yourself that space to be able to recover from stress, because not all stress is bad stress.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you're not able to recover from it? What happens to a person then? How
Yeah,
can it affect someone?
that's when it gets to a really bad space. I mean, I've heard stories, and maybe you've heard this as well, where people found themselves in a hospital and unfortunately have not made it home from the hospital, right? Because they've gotten so far into burnout. Our bodies just start to shut down after a while. Years ago, when I was really, really, really stressed, before I actually got into this work of helping people manage their stress and build resiliency to their stress, there were days where I would get so stressed out where my body would just physically shut me down and I'm not able to get out the bed. And my mind is like, I have these things to do. You know, I got this call I have to get on. I got to, cook dinner. I got to do all these things. But physically, I just could not get out the bed. And my body was just telling me, enough is enough. Now, when we start to barrel through that and we start to ignore our bodies and we get up despite what our body is telling us, that's when it'll get to the point of sending us into a hospital. And unfortunately, there's a lot of us who don't listen to our bodies the way that we should.
Mhm.
I had somewhere I had to be this morning, and I'm very diligent about knowing the symptoms and what my body needs. And this morning I woke up with a headache. I did not get a good night's rest. And I had to be somewhere at a certain time, and I simply just let the person know I'm going to be a little bit late. And I laid back down in the bed to give myself an extra hour because I know I needed that. Because if I would have just got up and started my day and been out the door, the day would have just compounded one on top of each other, and I would not be sitting here having this conversation with the both of you because I would have probably been burnt out by now.
I'm
I know-
curious. Oh, I'm sorry, Eva. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Koya.
I'm thinking about just how we all show up differently in the world. Have you found that they're different? Have you found what has been your outlook when it comes to men?
Mm-hmm.
How they deal with the impact of stress, and have they been able to speak to it? Because the world says, especially Black men, you can't do this, or you
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
So have what has been your analysis when it comes to Black men and how they're able to seek support in
Mm-hmm.
those areas?
Yeah. It's interesting because there is this very harmful stereotype that men have to be the strong ones, and men have to show up, and all of the things. And so men tend to wait until the very last minute.
Mm.
They tend to wait until they are literally either burned completely out, or they're just on the brink of it before they start to address it. Now, what I'm seeing now, trends that I'm seeing now, is actually it's becoming more normal for men to talk about the things that they're going through, including stress. And
Mm.
and I I'm a licensed associate marriage and family therapist, but I don't practice therapy anymore.
Mhm.
But men are coming to therapy more. There's organizations that promote men's mental health and their well-being. I'm in New Jersey, in the Philadelphia region. There's organizations, Black Men Therapy and Black Men Heal and all of these things. So it is getting a little bit more normalized. But what I'm seeing is that typically a man will not come and say, I need to deal with my stress.
Mhm.
They won't come directly out and talk about it. They will typically, I host a lot of webinars and things, so they might come for like a leadership development. And then as we're in like a coaching engagement, stressors might come out. Or it might be in a group setting where, I do a assessment with it has 7 best practices for building stress resiliency. So if we look at that assessment and certain scores on it are, when we start talking about it, and then I'll say, yeah, I'm a little bit stressed because of XYZ.
Mhm.
Emotional intelligence is also something that I do, and there's a stress management composite on emotional intelligence. And so if that's really, really low, then I'll bring it up and I'll address it. But men typically won't bring it up themselves.
Mhm. Thank you.
Hmm.
I was wondering if the stresses that a man have is maybe a little different than a woman's.
Oh, they're definitely different.
In what way?
They're definitely different. I think that a lot of the stressors that men deal with in the work environment, they deal with a lot more of the way they show up, right? They have to appear powerful. So a lot of their stressors are related to how they show up in the workplace, and what type of impact they're making in the workplace. So it's a lot of work demands for men. And then on the other side, on the home life side, it's that being a provider and carrying the work stress and coming home and still, being the provider, being a strong one, being a supportive one for their family. So their stresses are a little bit different. I feel like with women, a lot of our stressors actually come from how we view ourselves.
Mhm.
A lot of stressors come from, honestly, it's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves.
Mhm.
It's a lot of societal expectations that we're trying to fit into boxes that society has placed us in, and we don't feel authentic in those spaces. And then we got to come home and we got to do everything and be the, every person. So I think we juggle a lot of balls. We carry a lot of hats.
Mhm.
And so it's a lot of demands placed on us from different directions. And then also the pressures that we put on ourselves from societal expectations.
Mhm. Because I think a woman that works in the work environment, I think you have your responsibilities there to handle. You have the office politics. You have to,
Mm-hmm.
you deal with different type of people.
Mm-hmm.
You deal with different type of, you have your work. You have to get it done. It has to be done well in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think you come home, you think about your children.
Mm-hmm.
You think about your husband.
Mm-hmm.
There's a role that you have to play to support the family. And I believe the woman is the nurturing one that really builds the home. And I think that pressure sits on you too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, we carry everything from our home lives, and how to support our husband, how to support our children, how to
Mhm.
make sure that our house is a home.
Mhm.
Yeah, we carry all of those pressures. So that's what I mean by it's coming to us from different directions. I also see that women are a lot more sensitive to interpersonal pressures. Men can
Mhm.
release that,
Mhm.
where we'll ruminate on it for hours? And did we handle this situation correctly? Right?
Yeah.
How should I have responded in this particular situation? Once a man is done with a conversation, he's done with it.
Guilty as charged.
I know. Same thing. I know I talk to my sister a lot, and if something's bothered me, I mean, I will marinate it
Yeah.
and bring it up and toss it around and
Yeah.
look at it from different directions. And of course, she has to listen to me do all that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the same way with my sister. And,
Yeah.
I was talking to her over the weekend. I was actually at her house over the weekend. And, I was a little bit exhausted over the weekend and I really didn't want to go over, but my daughter did. And when I went there, I said, I'm here because, Jazz dragged me here. She said, Mom, don't you want to see your sister? And then my sister said, Well, I got about 1,000 texts from your mom. So we talk constantly. When I'm going through something, she is my go-to person for sure.
one of the things is you talk about burnout.
Hmm.
I was just wondering, I was reading one time, like burnout is caused when the resources that you use to deal with something, you don't have enough resources, or you use all those, and then you go into burnout. You really don't have anything else to deal with whatever it is that you're dealing with,
Hmm.
whether it's financial concerns,
Hmm.
it could be a relationship that's going bad,
Hmm.
and you've done everything you could do.
Hmm.
I think what you were saying about you had to take time and rest and recuperate and build up again before you went on to that next thing.
Correct.
But what happens if you don't do that?
Hmm. Yeah. So you're absolutely correct. Like burnout really happens when you are essentially out of capacity. It really is a capacity thing. Um, when you think about polyvagal theory, you have essentially three states, right? You have your ventral vagal state where this is where you're like in a calm state, you're creative, you can connect with people very easily. And then you have your sympathetic state, which is when you go into like fight or flight mode. And this is where some of those like good stressors come in at the things that, might drive you into action. But if it gets too far, then you start to get kind of reactive, you can get snippy, you can get controlling. And then the third state, we have like this dorsal vagal state, and this is where you completely shut down. This is where you are out of mental and emotional and physical resources. You're beyond a state of overwhelmed. You are basically checked out. And so when I was working in corporate, I knew a lot of people that went into that state where they just could not do anymore. They were completely disconnected from the job, they were completely disconnected from the mission, and they had to take sabbaticals and mental health leave. And that's essentially where burnout happens. You're right on the brink of burnout when you start to hit that state. And then burnout really does shut you down. I hear a lot of people, there's a lot of things on TikTok and Instagram and all the things where people say, oh, you're not burned out, you're just this. No, burnout's a real thing. It's in the DSM now. It's a diagnosable condition. Burnout puts people in the hospital. And so I want people to know that building a resiliency to your stress will keep you from that state of burnout where you're completely out of capacity. You have no more resources left.
How so you took me back to that thing we know as COVID,
Mm-hmm.
where I was working in as a lead administrator at my organization, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know burnout. I didn't even know that term. And
Mm-hmm.
then my beloved mother decided that she wanted to make her way to glory during the same
Mm-hmm.
time.
Oh,
And I'm working these 18 hours, and I could not identify what was going on
yeah.
between fatigue, emotionally eating, crying. I would
Mm-hmm.
have these anxiety. It was so intense. And then I heard about the term,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, and I thought, no, I was just tired and going through the transition. I now identify
Mm-hmm.
that was burnout.
Yeah.
I wish I knew you
Yeah.
then. What can a person who may have been in a similar situation like I was, and I think I've actually hit burnout again since then.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know? I think I know the triggers, but I'm thinking my body may respond differently depending upon the circumstance. How will one know that they're entering into that space so not to, because I felt that because I had to go out actually on mental health. I say to myself, I need a month or two to reset.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I was able to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
how does one identify that it's not just the the ebbs and flow of life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I so my whole goal is to get people before they get to that state, right? You shouldn't be on the brink of burnout. I've had clients who have called me and said, I feel the symptoms coming back. I've been in a state of burnout before. I recovered from it, and I feel those same symptoms starting to come back. And I don't want to be in full burnout anymore. And I tell them, I'm glad that you're here, but I wish I would have been working with you before, because the whole goal is to get you before you start to feel the symptoms of burnout. Because when you're starting to get there, it's already a little bit, I'm not going to say it's too late, because you can, prevent yourself from going into full burnout. But I really want to help people build the strength to carry more of these. I talked about the window of tolerance earlier, right? And so it's like when your window of tolerance is like this, then you can go into a state of burnout quite easily. And so the goal with building resiliency is to expand that window of tolerance so that you can take more before you get to that state of like full disconnection. And so that really boils down to awareness. It boils down to your self awareness, your social awareness, and how you navigate through the world. So when I start to work with people, one of the things that we look at is their triggers. And I heard you say, I'm fairly confident that I know my triggers now. And to be perfectly honest with you, most people I work with say that. They say, oh, Candice, I know my triggers. And then we sit down and we start to dissect things. We'll start to understand things that they didn't even recognize was a trigger,
Yeah.
right? When you think about, let me talk about a person maybe in the corporate world, because I have a corporate background. Um, you know, this person might think that being a multitasker is something that they got down packed. And they're like, I got it. I got it. I'm going to just knock these tasks out, the big rocks first, the medium-sized rocks second. Deep down inside, they really don't have it, right? Their brain is doing something that they're not even aware that they're doing. They think that they got this down packed. But meanwhile, their brain can't transition from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And it's adding these pronounced levels of stress to them because that's not the way that they operate the best. The way that they operate the best is by knocking off one task, getting it completely off their plate, and then taking on the next thing. But they don't recognize that off the bat. And so I think a part of it is just kind of understanding how you communicate the best, like you as a person, how you work the best, how you receive information the best. So it all really boils down to an awareness of your optimal operating state and making sure that you try to operate in that state as best as possible. And when it comes down to work, sometimes there's a lot of demands coming at you all the time. Maybe, and I hate to say this because it's not that easy. The workforce sucks right now, especially for Black women. So it's not as easy as like leaving a job, but maybe the job that you really love, say you're in healthcare and you love patient care and you love just taking care of people, but the demands that come with healthcare are not optimal for you.
Mhm.
And sometimes we just have to understand, like, if I'm choosing this, then I have to find ways to really regulate myself because this is not what works for me necessarily, and it's going to cause me to have a lot of stress. So awareness is a very long answer to your question.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Well, our time is up. Thank you so much, Candice, for coming on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna make sure I stay connected.
Koya and I,
Definitely. It's such
Koya
a
and I have been together about, what, 5 or 6 times now?
yeah.
Oh.
I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful when people give their time
Mm-hmm.
when they don't have to. So I appreciate it.
This is a pleasure.
So I'd like to say to everyone, thank you for joining us today. This is Yvonne from JK Lifestyles with Yvonne, is Koya Bakare, and it's Candice Ramsey. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.